Okay, so let's dive right in. There's been quite a bit of noise recently around Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and some comments he made about autistic children.
Yeah, it definitely touched a nerve, and it's sparked a lot of debate.
That's what we're looking at today. We want to understand, what the core issue is, the different sides we're hearing from.
And maybe what this whole situation highlights about how we discuss autism, especially when public figures get involved.
Exactly. It feels like it sits right at that tricky intersection of public health, personal stories, and maybe neurodiversity as a concept.
Precisely. It's complex territory.
So maybe start us off with, what exactly did RFK Jr. say that caused such a stir?
Well, the reports say he described autism as something that destroys families.
Wow. Okay. Strong words.
Very strong. And he elaborated, apparently, saying it also destroys our greatest resource, our children. He linked it to kids who might, never be independent.
In what way?
Things like basic life skills, toileting, holding down a job, paying taxes, that sort of thing. He did specify he meant severe cases, but still.
Still, destroys families is a heavy statement.
Ah.
And yeah, I imagine that didn't just pass by unnoticed.
Not at all. And one of the loudest voices pushing back was Rosie O'Donnell.
Right, Rosie O'Donnell. She has a personal connection here, doesn't she?
She does. She's the mother of a non-binary autistic child who uses they/them pronouns. It's worth noting.
Okay, so her reaction was probably quite direct.
Very direct and very personal. She called Kennedy's comments things like disrespectful and shameful, clearly hit close to home.
And she didn't just criticize the comments themselves, did she? I heard something about his potential role in government.
That's right. She linked it directly to the idea of him potentially becoming the Secretary of Health and Human Services, HHS. She basically argued that holding views like the ones he expressed should disqualify him from leading HHS.
Saying his views make him unfit for that kind of public health leadership.
Essentially, yes. She even kind of framed it as part of like a reality TV government mindset, prioritizing celebrity over actual health expertise.
Interesting framing. And then she brought up something about the Kennedy family history. That seemed like a specific point to make.
Yeah, that was a really pointed comparison. She highlighted the Kennedy family's long-standing, very public connection to the Special Olympics.
Oh, right. Founded by Eunice Kennedy Shriver, his aunt.
Exactly. So the Special Olympics is all about empowerment, celebrating abilities, inclusion for people with intellectual disabilities.
A very different message.
A starkly different message. O'Donnell seemed to be pointing out the irony, or maybe the dissonance, between that family legacy and RFK Jr.'s comments about autism destroying children. It really underscores why people found his words so jarring, so insensitive.
So, faced with this backlash, particularly from someone like O'Donnell, how did Kennedy respond? Did he double down, or...?
He did attempt to clarify. He reiterated that his comments were aimed at what he described as severe cases of autism, not the entire spectrum.
Okay, a clarification then.
Yes, and he also made an announcement. He said he's directed HHS, or would, presumably, if in a position to do so, to investigate the rising rates of autism diagnoses.
An investigation. Into what specifically?
The goal, he stated, was to find a cause for the increase by September. He's mentioned looking into environmental factors before.
And I think he used the term epidemic in relation to autism.
He did, and that term itself is often contentious within the autism community.
Why is that?
Well, epidemic usually suggests a disease spreading rapidly, which can sound quite alarming and, frankly, stigmatizing. Many advocates prefer language that reflects neurodevelopmental differences rather than, implying a sickness.
I see. And this investigation ties into his longer-held views,
Yes.
right? Particularly around potential causes.
It seems to, and this is where we get into probably the most controversial aspect of his public statements over the years.
Which is?
The connection he's repeatedly drawn between vaccines and autism.
Yes, that connection. Which, it has to be said, has been thoroughly, comprehensively debunked by the scientific community.
Thoroughly. Decades of research, huge studies involving millions of children worldwide. They've all consistently shown no link.
It all stemmed from that one flawed study, didn't it? The Wakefield study.
Exactly. Andrew Wakefield's study, which was later retracted, found to be fraudulent, and he lost his medical license over it. But the idea, unfortunately, stuck in some circles.
And it's dangerous misinformation, isn't it? Because it can scare parents away from vital vaccinations.
Absolutely. It has real public health consequences when vaccine confidence is undermined based on discredited theories.
Yet Kennedy himself says he's not against vaccines, correct? That's his stated position.
That is what he says. But at the same time, he consistently raises questions about vaccine safety and efficacy, and he strongly pushes the idea of environmental toxins being a major cause.
So less focus on vaccines specifically, more on other environmental factors.
Yes, he talks a lot about toxins, and interestingly, he's also suggested that someone is profiting from these supposed toxins.
Profiting?
He doesn't seem to specify who exactly, but frames it as if there's a financial motive behind exposing kids to toxins. And he's also pushed back against what he calls the normalization of autism.
What does he mean by normalization? Like the neurodiversity movement?
It certainly seems aimed at that, yes. He's implied that accepting autism as a natural variation isn't good for the country.
Which is pretty much the opposite of the neurodiversity perspective.
Completely opposite. The neurodiversity movement argues that conditions like autism are natural variations in the human brain, part of human diversity, not necessarily deficits to be cured or prevented.
So acceptance and support rather than seeing it purely as something negative.
Right. Acceptance doesn't ignore challenges or the need for support systems, but it reframes the whole conversation away from just disease or disorder.
And how does Kennedy's focus on toxins and this resistance to normalization compare with what most autism experts say about why diagnoses have increased?
Well, the overwhelming consensus among researchers and clinicians is quite different. Most experts attribute the rise primarily to two main factors: significantly increased awareness among parents, doctors, and educators.
Okay, people just know what to look for more now.
Exactly. And second, much better and broader diagnostic tools and criteria. We can now identify autism across a much wider spectrum, including presentations that might have been missed or labeled something else entirely years ago.
So it's more about better recognition than a sudden environmental cause in the mainstream view.
That's the prevailing scientific understanding, yes. While environmental research is ongoing, it hasn't yielded a single cause like Kennedy seems to be searching for, and it doesn't replace the understanding about improved diagnostics and awareness.
Got it. Now, going back to Rosie O'Donnell for a moment, there was another layer to her reaction related to politics beyond just RFK Jr., something about moving.
Yes, that added another dimension. She mentioned that she actually moved to Ireland after Donald Trump was elected.
Okay, and she connected that to this situation.
She did. She specifically cited concerns related to Project 2025, that conservative policy initiative, and worried about its potential impact on her non-binary child.
So her opposition to Kennedy, especially considering his potential role in a future administration, has this deeper political context for her.
It seems so. And it's also worth remembering, she and Kennedy apparently have some history. Reports mentioned public disagreements going back to her time hosting The View.
Ah, so maybe some pre-existing friction there too.
Potentially, yeah. It adds layers to the dynamic.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap. We've got RFK Jr.'s comments about autism destroying families.
Rosie O'Donnell's very strong personal pushback, questioning his fitness for HHS and invoking the Special Olympics legacy.
Kennedy's clarification about focusing on severe cases, and his call for an HHS investigation into causes possibly linked to environmental toxins.
Which connects to his history with the discredited vaccine autism theory, even as he says he's not anti-vaccine.
Contrasting sharply with the expert consensus on increased awareness and better diagnosis explaining rising rates.
And finally, the political and personal backdrop for O'Donnell, including her move to Ireland and concerns about Project 2025, it's a lot.
It really is. And what strikes me is how this whole episode just throws into sharp relief the challenges of talking about complex health issues like autism in the public arena.
Absolutely. You have a public figure with a known history on the topic, making broad, quite provocative statements. It inevitably hits differently for people with lived experience, for advocates.
And the reactions become really intense, really fast.
Right. It makes you think about the weight words carry, especially from people with a platform.
Yeah, the responsibility involved. How carefully do public figures need to tread when discussing sensitive conditions that affect so many families?
And it brings up that fundamental question, doesn't it? How do we navigate these conversations where deeply personal experiences, scientific evidence, sometimes conflicting interpretations of it, and political viewpoints all collide?
Especially around something like autism, where understanding is still evolving.
Exactly. What's the most constructive way forward? How do we discuss these things with the nuance and the respect they really demand?
Definitely something for our listeners to chew on. Some really important points raised today.
A complex issue, for sure.
Thanks for breaking it down with us. We'll be back soon for another deep dive.